the first thing, probably the biggest announcement that came on Trump's inauguration day on January 20th was the fact that he wants to end birthright citizenship. So he announced that the federal government is going to stop recognizing basically people who were born in the United States. They're going to stop recognizing them as citizens if they were born to undocumented parents or even parents that were on a valid temporary non-immigrant visa. That's what the executive order says. So if you're born here and you didn't have a parent here who had either citizenship or permanent residency, Trump is saying we don't consider you to be a citizen. And as you can see here from the New York Times, 22 states have sued to stop this, to basically have a judge tell Trump, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. These are obviously citizens. So what is the controversy about? You can see here that people are calling it extraordinary and extreme. That's what New Jersey's Attorney General has said about Trump's order. He's not a king. He cannot rewrite the Constitution with the stroke of a pen. They're saying this because the Constitution says who is considered a citizen. And there is an amendment, the 14th Amendment, that explicitly says that people born here are citizens. We have this concept or this legal framework called jus soli, which means if you're born on the soil of the United States, except for very specific exceptions. Apart from those specific exceptions, if you're born in the United States, you are a citizen. And the law has been the 14th Amendment of the Constitution has been interpreted for hundreds of years, this to mean exactly what it sounds like it means, that people born here are citizens, right? So these states are suing to say, Trump, you can't do that. And the issue here is that in the interim, before this hopefully gets overturned by a judge and kicked out, the State Department is not going to be issuing passports to these people unless they can prove they had a parent who had permanent residency or U.S. citizenship when they were born here. And that's a problem. That's a very, very big deal, that someone can't avail themselves to all of the rights of citizenship, including things like getting a passport, because of this illegal act. Now, I have high confidence that the courts are going to disagree with Donald Trump and tell him that this is wrong and he can't do this, and it's going to overturn it eventually, but it's going to take time. Look, I mean, even this Supreme Court that is stacked by Donald Trump is I think unlikely to agree with him on this issue. This is a pretty clear-cut black and white issue. And so I do think that this is going to get overturned, but in the interim, it's not good, right? It's hard for people and it's scary. And, Trump is sending a loud warning shot, trying to send a strong message with this move to get, to cut to like the very heart of all immigration matters, of who gets to be a citizen and, who does not. So this is tough. A couple of things on the border, concerning the border. Trump, we see in NPR, Trump reinforces his use of his Remain in Mexico policy. This is another announcement from Inauguration Day. What is Remain in Mexico policy? Biden did this as well, and Trump started it. Biden has used it as well. Biden ended it, but then more or less reinstated it. It's a policy whereby when people come to the southern border to seek asylum, they are told by our immigration personnel at the border, nope, can't come in, can't seek asylum, or at least you can't be in the United States. When you do so, they're allowed to apply, but they get kicked out, sent back to Mexico to wait in Mexico while their immigration court process runs its course in the United States. When it's time for a hearing, they get a phone call or a text message that says, come to the border, and they get to come into the United States just to go to a courtroom near the border. And this is working a significant hardship on asylum seekers, right? Because it's dangerous. It's hard and dangerous, especially given that they have to stay in the border areas, because when you get that call, you got to be there like the next day for your hearing or you'll miss it. So you can't go, someplace much safer like Mexico City that's far away. You got to be around the border areas, and that is hard and dangerous. It's very dangerous. So Trump announced that, we're going back to the Remain in Mexico policy. Now, Mexico has pushed back a little bit and said, wait a second, we're not going to take all these people that come up to your border and have you kick them back down here to us. We're not okay with that. We're not great with that. So there is some diplomatic tension that is building over this. So we'll have to watch and see how that unfolds. All right, more news about the border from the Texas Tribune. We see that migrants at Texas border in shock after Trump canceled their asylum appointments. What is this about? This is talking about the CBP1 application, CBP1 app. This is an application on a phone that you can download if you're outside of the United States and you want to make an appointment to come and try to apply for asylum. You can do that coming up from Mexico to the southern border. And the idea is, instead of just showing up randomly at the border or trying to cross illegally, you use this app to schedule an appointment with immigration officials to start this process of seeking asylum. And the idea by the Biden administration that instituted this was, okay, this is going to be an orderly way to process people. We're going to encourage people to do this coming to the border thing in an organized, safe manner that's going to be better for everyone, both them and the U.S. government trying to process them. But Trump said, nope, we're getting rid of CBP1, of this lawful means to seek asylum. And by the way, after you got let into the country after your CBP1 appointment, people were getting parole, which is permission to be here for, in most cases, 2 years. And Trump is saying, no, we're not going to do that anymore. All right. And the thing is, this program, along with another one that I'm going to tell you about in a minute, were credited with bringing down drastically the number of people coming to the southern border and trying to cross unauthorized at, not at an official checkpoint. In other words, it cut down on people trying to sneak into the country, because this program, and another one I'm going to tell you about in a minute, provided an actual legal, organized way to come seek asylum. And they helped to decrease the overall numbers of people coming to the southern border. But this is not something Trump is interested in. So the CBP1 application is not effective. And you can see that there were many thousands of people that actually had their CBP1 appointments scheduled for the coming days that received a notification saying canceled. There were thousands of migrants who had hoped to enter the United States legally, but saw their long-awaited appointments canceled shortly after Trump was inaugurated Monday. And so there's videos, of people crying at a bridge that connects El Paso and Juarez, who were waiting for their CBP1 appointment, and they just found out that, it's no more. I'm not going to do it. All right. Furthermore, we've got in immigration news from this week, potential immigration raids spark fear and protests on Inauguration Day from Capitol News, Illinois. And this is interesting because something actually did not happen that we had expected to happen. Speaking of these immigration raids, Trump's team, like his border czar, Tom Homan, and an advisor, Stephen Miller, had indicated that on day one, meaning January 20th, Inauguration Day, we should expect to see mass deportation efforts and mass raids, meaning immigration agents from ICE storming workplaces where there are a lot of migrant workers and looking for people that are undocumented, and going out into the streets and finding people, doing targeted arrests at the homes of undocumented people. And so we were expecting that on day one. And interestingly, it didn't happen. Chicago was actually forecast. In fact, Trump's own people said Chicago was where they were going to start. But actually, it didn't happen. It was actually quiet. This is from Chicago. And it says that immigrant communities around Illinois braced Tuesday for threatened mass deportation. But this neighborhood they're talking about saw little foot traffic and no anticipated raids as of Tuesday afternoon, the second day of the Trump administration. So despite, Trump has vowed to carry out the largest mass deportation in history, and we can still expect it. To be clear, I'm not saying that we're not going to see raids and other massive enforcement action on immigration probably very soon. It just hasn't happened yet. It wasn't in the first couple days of the new Trump presidency. All right, this one, Trump administration from NPR. Trump administration strips schools, churches of immigration enforcement protection. This is big news because historically, ICE has had a policy that says, you know what, we're not going to go in and do arrests or look for people at schools or churches. Okay, those are kind of like sanctuaries or safe places where the policy, there's no law preventing it, but it's always been the policy of the U.S. government to not do immigration enforcement in those places. But now Trump's saying, forget that. We're getting rid of that rule. And you can imagine that, yeah, they're going to do immigration enforcement, meaning go try to arrest people to then deport them at places like schools and churches. Well, this is going to have a massive negative impact on schools. There's articles out there about how administrators and teachers and people at schools are struggling and seeing kids not show up at school already because their parents are afraid that if they go to school, they're going to get deported. Oh, also, as it says here, healthcare facilities are also places where historically they have not gone to do arrest, but now that's back on the table. All right. Criminals will no longer be able to hide in America's schools and churches to avoid arrest, a DHS spokesperson said in a statement. The Trump administration will not tie the hands of our brave law enforcement and instead trust them to use common sense. So look, like, how many people are they going to go actually arrest at schools and churches and healthcare facilities? Probably not a ton, to be honest with you. But this sends a strong message. The Trump administration is going no holds barred. Like, they want to send the message that, look, everyone is now vulnerable. You can't hide. You're not safe. That's really the fear that they want to spread is effectively being done through messages like this of, look, we might come get you at your school. We might come get you at your church while you're at the hospital, places like that. So it sends a powerful anti-immigrant message and stokes fear in immigrant communities, which is obviously not a healthy way to live for immigrants. It's also bad for public safety when, as pretty much any police, local police chief will say, it's terrible for public safety when immigrants feel like they can't go to the authorities. They become victims of crime, and it perpetuates crime when immigrants are scared of talking to the authorities. Last thing, we've got Trump moves from the Miami Herald. Trump moves to end refugee resettlement and parole for Cubans, Haitians, and Venezuelans. What is this about? Two things. First of all, our refugee program, by which we bring people from other countries that are usually resettled in refugee camps. We vet them overseas. We establish that they're a refugee, and we bring them to the United States. That program is being paused. They're not going to bring anyone for the foreseeable future for several months at least. But also, and probably more important to you guys, to our viewers, in our community here, is this bit about ending this parole for Cubans, Haitians, Venezuelans. Actually, also, they should add to this Nicaraguans. You see, there's this program called CHNV. It stands for Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela, that the Biden administration started to give people from those countries a safe, orderly way to come to the United States. Because look, there were a bunch of people from those countries coming to the southern border, and coming to the southern border is not the best way to do this, to have a structured, organized, safe immigration system. The Biden administration thought, rather than have them showing up unannounced at the border, let's do this in a more orderly way. Let's actually vet them while they're abroad. They can apply. They have to have a sponsor in the U.S. to sponsor them and show that their financial needs are going to be met. And the person gets vetted for security check purposes. And they were able to fly to the United States at their own expense. The U.S. government did not pay for this, and get into the country with parole, usually meaning they could stay for 2 years. And a lot of people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela came on this program. And as of now, it is gone. It's over. So, between this move of ending CHNV, parole, and basically sealing off the border, there were other things that I haven't talked about today that Trump did to essentially seal the border more. This is tough for a lot of people. It's going to create chaos for people that want to get asylum in the United States. That is where we are in the news. There's more that Trump has promised. For example, getting rid of temporary protected status, and maybe even not just not renewing it for certain countries, but also possibly proactively stripping it for certain countries. So people with parole through this CHMV program, or parole that came here, that got the parole after coming through the CBP-1 process at the southern border, or people that have TPS, that's well over 1 million people. And they could be at risk of losing their status. And if they lose their status, then they could be put in deportation proceedings. You can protect against that probably by having an asylum application pending. Okay. If you're afraid of being harmed in your country, you should talk to an asylum lawyer right away about applying for asylum in the United States, because that could be a way, at least as of right now, under the current policies and the way the Trump administration is expected to handle things, and has been handled for many years. If you have an asylum application pending, you're unlikely to be put in deportation proceedings or to be arrested and deported. Instead, you'll have a chance to present and explain your asylum claim and have a chance to possibly win asylum. So the point is, having a pending asylum claim may be able to protect you from getting put in deportation proceedings or being actually arrested and deported. All right. I'm Brian Manning, and my law firm is called Political Asylum Lawyers, and we help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum.